Hey there! Welcome to the Queen Bee Sessions, conversations with Wisconsin women in conservation. We tell stories about all the good work being done to protect soil, water, and wildlife by our fair state's women landowners, farmers, farm workers, gardeners, prairie stewards, woodland guardians, urban growers, and conservation professionals. We hope these stories encourage you in your own efforts to nurture land and yourself. We are the Wisconsin Women in Conservation Project, otherwise known as WeWiC, and I'm your host, Chris Marion, a mom and grandma grazing sheep in the Driftless region. My land is sandy and my chickens are sassy. Like you, I'm always learning better ways to keep my soil and myself healthy and productive. I love to learn by visiting with like-minded women, those queen bees slaying every day for the earth and our communities. I'm sure glad you're here. Well, today it is my great delight to welcome my friend Donna Green of Growing Green Gardens Network, LLC, to the Queen Bee Sessions. Good morning, Donna. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited.
Well, I think you have so much to share. Anybody who has been to a community garden in Milwaukee or is involved in the urban farming scene in Milwaukee has met you somewhere at some point. I think if they wanted to track you down on any given day, that might be hard.
A little bit.
You've got your feet in a lot of gardens, and you've got your hands in a lot of soil, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking of feet, I want to talk about this for a minute. When I first met you, we were at Alice's garden, and you were wearing these. Let's see if I can show it. These adorable. I love these boots. They're awesome.
Still have them.
They for a while to me they were your trademark boots. I love them so much. I got them for my granddaughter.
Oh, wonderful. Oh,
so
beautiful.
You have great style, and
Thank you.
You are just so much fun to be around.
Thank you, Chris.
So by way of introduction, we're going to talk about all the things you're involved with now, but you have your own business. It's the intersection between gardening and child care and education. You kind of do a lot of things, but you're involved in many of the urban garden spaces in Milwaukee, and you're basically a rock star of raised beds, all beds, and soil. So the first thing I want to ask you today is, whoa, how did you get involved in this big garden map that basically intersects the whole city of Milwaukee? Where did this start?
Well, I'll say that it started, of course, during the pandemic. So I live in the Harambe neighborhood. I learned that there was a community garden here and that you could sign up for plots. And because I don't own land, but I wanted to continue the growing that I was doing while I lived in Kentucky and, early in my earlier years when I'm in Milwaukee. So I came to Victory Garden, I rented a couple of plots and I started planning and planting. I noticed other children from the neighborhood, because it's a community garden. Of course, they're welcome into it, but for being a little, destructive. And I wanted to try to thwart that. And so my idea was to get them on board or see if I could get them interested in growing and learning where food come from. So started some conversations, and from there, they basically took interest, and I would meet them out in the garden every day. And we stay out there for a few hours. Some would come and go. I asked them about, different foods that they may like or would want to try growing. And then I went and purchased the seeds. And then from there, the next thing I knew, we were coming into the farmhouse. And after things were ready for harvesting, they would help me harvest, and we would come into the farmhouse and, prepare meals with the food that was grown. And that's kind of how it began. So from there, I was inspired to start my own community garden um, as a nonprofit, a way that I could integrate a lot of ideas and utilize some of my background in education to keep it going and keep it growing.
Well, I mean, I think it's amazing that this just started during the pandemic because your influence and reach, the amount of ground that you're active on right now is really amazing. And the amount of people that you've touched, children and adults, as an educator. Can you explain to us what Growing Green Gardens Network is? Like what is your business
Sure.
mission
So
and
it's a
what are you?
nonprofit. I'm sorry. So it's a nonprofit organization. Um, the main mission for Growing Green Gardens is to get people um, interested and educated and give them the hands-on learning that they need, to grow their own healthy, organic foods, in a sustainable way, in sustainable ways. So paying mind to being mindful of sound conservation practices, which is something that generally I believe, especially in African American culture, is something that we did always. We just did not use the terminologies that are out there now. We didn't say organic or, companion planting. It was just passed down through family histories and generations, or definitely dating back to when we did the planting in America on plantations and things. It was something that was always done. So it's blending in, doing it in the urban setting can pose different challenges. But I think that Growing Green Gardens is trying to be a model to inspire people to grow healthy foods. And especially because, it's in Milwaukee, we have 13 areas labeled as food deserts. The economy is such, with jobs and during the pandemic. And, I want people to know that they can become less reliant on going to the grocery store and more self-reliant on by growing their own foods.
Well, for sure, anybody who walks by Alice's Garden or the Victory Gardens, any of these community gardens will see that there's a lot of really amazing food pouring out of those gardens and a lot of life kind of circling around them. And it's a really a vibrant part of these communities. So even while there's food deserts, we also see that there's beautiful oases in these neighborhoods that are doing amazing things. It's really, there's art, there's people, and there's kids running around, there's people smelling the roses. And it's really inspiring. When I met you, and that was a couple years ago, right? It's kind of like the pandemic was still pretty active. But we were outside at Alice's Garden, and you, or maybe this was last year, maybe that was the second event that we were together with out there. You had this whole plot of okra. Can you tell me about the okra project and how that came about and how it went?
Well, all honor to Venus. That was a project that she introduced. She taught me about it. I am honestly not a fan of okra. I have trauma behind it as a child. But growing
some gooey, slippery trauma.
Right. It wasn't something that I had any intentions on growing myself, but I loved it that Venus, I'm sorry, Williams from Alice's Garden, she has been an inspiration, a mentor. I just have to give all praise and glory to her. So she taught me about something I didn't know about slaves who came on ships, how they brought the seeds with them braided into their hair. So much like I have cornrows in my hair, the process that they would do is put the seeds in the hair before they braided it. And that's how the okra seeds and things like rice was brought on the slave ship. So um, talk about, just learning so much rich history behind things. And I think we planted, I want to say maybe 10 or more different types of okra. I didn't even know it was that many varieties, but it was just wonderful for me to learn and experiment and learn how to grow from Venus with the okra.
Well, I'm a big okra fan myself. I didn't grow up eating it. I
Mm-hmm.
discovered it when I was when I had a CSA at my farm.
Okay.
But boy, it's not easy to grow in my experience. It is like there's one ripe a day. I mean, just harvesting it just seemed like a lot of work, but it was such a beautiful plant. The flowers are beautiful,
Yes.
kind of a dramatic tall plant, but the story, uh, that story is just incredible. And the hope, and the forethought embedded in that impulse to bring seeds with you from your home. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's that's really beautiful. I will never think of okra the same again after hearing that
Right. And
story.
I have a new appreciation for it. So um, just knowing that is part of, some things we aren't always aware of. And if I could say something that's so significant about my work at Alice's Garden is that not only did I get to share my knowledge of growing skills, but I learned just as much as I taught there. And so it was a very reciprocating relationship
That,
because of course I don't know everything.
right.
And I love to be in the position where I was able to not only be in a teaching role, but an active learner.
Yeah. Well, that place is kind of a miracle of reciprocity. I mean, you have a lot of different cultures there. Some people have
Yes.
been there for so long and they really have a lot of knowledge of their cultural foods. Other people are just
Mm-hmm.
learning. I've seen teenagers there with their younger siblings. I mean, the amount of the exchange that can happen in a community
Yes.
garden is really so different from my experience as a rural farmer.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm a smallholder on 20 acres and I've only ever grown on 4, which is kind of a community gardenish size, I
Yes.
it's very isolated. It's a really different, kind of,
Vibe.
right. You have to make some effort to connect with other farmers in your community. And sometimes those farmers aren't growing anything like what you're growing. But in those urban gardens, it is a very exciting place to be.
Yes. A
So
melting pot, I would say.
yeah,
The great thing about it is there's everyone. There's some people who had been, Alice's Garden was actually, I think it was in its 51st year
unbelievable.
last year, and just the history about how it came about, the neighborhood, but also, like you said, the multiculturalism
Hmm.
that exists there is outstanding. There were some people who were growing there that we had a little language barriers, but
Yeah.
first we were able to communicate with each other, shared our foods with each other. I can't tell you how many times one of the gardeners who may have been Hmong, or Asian, I was able to ask about the foods that they were growing, and they were like, here, try this, share this. We had farmers who had origins from Africa. I mean, just many different cultures, in the garden and coupled with the activities and things. So in an urban farm and community garden setting, there's quite a few here in Milwaukee, but I feel like they all have different goals. They
Mm-hmm.
operate differently. For instance, here at Victory Garden, where I happen to be now, they're a gleaning garden. They're a community garden where anyone can just walk in, and if they need food and it's there, they can pick it and
Wow.
take it. It's an acre and a half farm. There's everything from um, um, fruit trees to cabbage to, herbs. There's everything that they have to offer. Whereas Alice's Garden, their model is, they rent out garden plots. They have community um, volunteers, as most of them all do, because you can't even on a small urban farm or small community garden, there's so much work to be done.
Right. Right.
There's so much work to be weeding, planting, succession planting, just managing, keeping the
Mm-hmm.
garden clean and keeping it presentable. There's a lot of work that I have an appreciation for that goes on behind the scenes. And I was privy as a employee with Alice's Garden to take on many of those roles, which, they aren't so pretty. It's hard work. But when
Right.
you look out on the landscape and you see what is produced from that hard work and how the benefits of it, it makes it all worthwhile.
So can you describe the scene at the Victory Garden and what
Mhm.
kind of how people can connect there? I think I recently saw on Facebook that there's sort of a volunteer drive happening right now around building raised beds. Can you tell me about that, the gardens, and how people can connect with the community there?
Of course. So at Victory Garden, they have for several years now done what they call a blitz. And with the blitz, they were building um, approximately 300 garden beds for people in the community so they could sign up. And they would pay based upon income. So it wasn't bringing in profits, but it was part of their mission that everyone should be able to grow. So this year, they are now getting ready to build 500 garden beds for Milwaukeeans. And so getting the logistics and organizing it, and it's all based on volunteerism. So they
Wow.
will actually cut the lumber. Um, they have the equipment that they will come out, and the volunteers will put the garden beds together at people's individual homes, where at their individual homes, they get organic soil.
Wow.
So basically, all they have to do is plant and care for the foods. So they can start from seed, they can use seed starts. So this is amazing,
That is
this year.
amazing. The impact
500
on,
in 2 weeks.
oh my
One
gosh.
time. Yes.
So are those all spoken for? Are they all?
Um, no, if people can go to Victory Garden Initiative's website and to the Facebook page, and very soon the sign up, they will have opportunities for people to register and sign up. It's based on income. So they
Okay.
have 3 different levels um, that people can qualify under, and they will get that information. So within the next week or two, I think it should be open up. But they can actually just go to Victory Garden Initiative's website, or like I said, on Facebook, and get all the information they need. And that's where their soon will registration will be open.
That's amazing. That's just I didn't know that was happening right now. And
Hmm.
and so if people wanted to chip in and volunteer, same thing. Victory Garden
Yes,
Initiative and
yes,
sign up and learn and meet a lot of really good people.
of course, yes. And
And
we'll
so
offer more classes here,
okay.
out in the garden. It was wonderful. I conducted some education classes here for gardening and growing, through different parts of the season. So we began, of course, with planted and ended with how to close the garden off, for the winter, and talked a little bit. I was able to do a class about winter planting as well. So the growing season, letting people know ways to extend the growing season. Because, here in the Midwest, it isn't so, we don't have as much time as southern states and warmer states have.
Especially if you want to grow okra.
Oh, yeah. Or cabbage.
Right. So you are sitting right now in the office at
Yes,
the Victory Garden Initiative. And I looked it up. It's victorygardeninitiative.org. If
yes,
you want to get a garden or you want to help build gardens.
Yes.
But you have a lot more going. It sounds like there's a lot going on right at the Victory Garden, but you've got a lot more going on other pieces of land. So
yes,
can you tell me about your Growing Green Gardens and what your program is like out there?
Okay, so Growing Green Gardens, like I said, is at a UW Extension, Milwaukee County land that I lease at Firefly Ridge Community Garden in Wauwatosa.
Okay.
So with that, it is a teaching garden. I work with different organizations and seeking to expand as far as that goes. But the past year, and I hope to continue the relationships with organizations like Peak Initiative, Bloom, Art Therapy, and I also NEMA Therapy, a great long-term friend of mine, Delora, is an art therapist. So she's done art in the garden. Wow. For people to explore. And I think of the garden as art. Right now working on working with MyEd to hopefully get some students out there and do some artwork pertaining to water conservation and building a beautiful garden, because art is more than painting. So fingers crossed in the works. We are also having a blueprint, to make sure that we maximize the space of the garden. So we will be adding in 20 additional garden beds this season that will be available. Some of them will be available for lease.
Okay.
And that information is coming soon as well. And that people can contact through the Facebook page. Another project that's going on is drip irrigation, in line with conservation best practices. This will be a garden where the community members and any group or organization or individual can come out and learn what it means to be water wise in the garden, to conserve water. So we will be an example of ways that people can do this at home in their backyard gardens, or on their urban gardens. So we'll have drip irrigation in many of the garden beds, solar powered irrigation, where the drip irrigation will be, used with solar panels, education classes for water conservation, rain barrels. We're having gutters installed on the greenhouse that we will have erected soon, and a garden shed for our tools that will be erected. So we'll try to capture rainwater in as many ways as possible and put it back into use for watering the plants in the garden, and to also help keep the soil healthy.
Wow.
So people will also learn about soil health and the different types of soil that they have, and how to help it soak up the water, and not have as much runoff, so the water isn't going back into the sewage systems to be treated, that we preserve
Right.
and capture as much as possible. So there will also be a sample rain garden there that we will be able to use as a teaching garden. So people will be able to see that hands-on what it looks like and be able to learn how to build one themselves.
Wow. So it sounds like you're really building out the infrastructure right now using best
Yes, ma'am.
practices. And this is state of the art farming
Mhm.
knowledge that is kind of an emerging thing.
Yes.
If people wanted to rent a plot or get involved there, do they go to Going Green Gardens Network on Facebook, or would they rent from actually Firefly Ridge? Where should people go to
Well,
investigate?
both actually.
Okay.
So, Firefly Ridge Community X, they have through the UW Extension and Milwaukee County grounds. If they look that up, they will be able to sign up for or rent garden plots if they wanted their own individual plot that they would pay for, or if they wanted to have what's included with renting from Growing Green Gardens is that with your plot rental, you also have access to garden training, hands-on garden training. So I think it will be a for those who are just getting started and want someone to kind of help walk them through it so they'll be able to grow and learn how to grow, and the best practices and get the education as they go along.
That's amazing. So Growing Green Gardens Network is where to connect with you if they want mentorship and renting plots at Firefly. It looks like
Yes.
Milwaukee County Extension. I look this is
Yes, ma'am.
it sounds like there's plots all over the city that can be
I
rented
think they
from.
have 8 locations. Yes.
Okay, yeah, so that's interesting for people who aren't right by Firefly. Um,
Hmm.
wow, so there's a lot going on all over the place. You mentioned earlier when we were visiting that you are moving into 4-H as a leader. Can you tell us what's going on with
Yes.
that? That sounds really interesting.
Oh, so I'm very excited. I'm very excited to work with Eva from UW Extension. So we've been in communication back and forth. I just signed up and registered today, and I'm going through the processes because I want to bring agricultural training and through 4-H and be able to have youth, come out to the garden, or, my motto, as you say, I'm all over the place. I'm very open to going to where the people are. I don't expect everyone, my motto is, who am I that everyone should come to me? So the reason why I am in so many different places is because I want to make myself accessible to those who don't have the ability, be it through transportation or for whatever reasons, to come to me. So by being in several different places, spaces, working with different organizations in schools or community um, gardens allows me to reach more people.
Hmm.
And it allows for accessibility for those who may not, through no fault of their own, have the ability to get to where Growing Green Gardens is located. Or,
Hmm.
yeah, so that's kind of my motto. And that's what I've done even before in my earlier training years. And I've just kind of keep that going.
So you also are working in the space of disability
Yes.
accessibility for people. You mentioned one of the gardens is building some ADA gardens, or I forget which garden that's at. LaDonna, help
Okay.
me out.
Okay. So this will be at my nonprofit, Growing Green Gardens Network at Firefly Ridge. So yes, we will be having many of the beds to ADA standard heights.
So that's
And
like,
so that the space at, 24 inches 24 inches, well, 20 inches on up to 30 inches of height. So if someone is, many people want a garden, but they're not able to go get down on the ground. Even with the raised bed, is too low for them.
Right.
So it will be made accessible so that those who are maybe in a walker or wheelchair or, and don't have the ability to be so bend over or be so low on the ground where they can participate, where they can grow foods and participate, at a level that's comfortable for them and safe for them as well. So that also means that if they're in wheelchairs, that they'll have the space to navigate. The land will be, made flat enough.
Yeah.
Spread out, exactly, so that it's accessible.
That is really exciting. I think these are all really necessary and forward-thinking adaptations of garden space. And I think it's just so great. Your kind of career in urban farming started with kids, but now you're making things accessible through the swath of experience and age with both the education and just the ADA infrastructure. I'm 57 now, and I have a hoop house that I grew in for, a decade and a half, and I'm going to build raised beds along the edge that are high. So I'm thinking about the future as I'm getting older. I don't really want to have to be on my hands and knees. And I think it's a wonderful thing that I've seen at some assisted living places, just these nice high beds, even if you are not in a wheelchair, but you just want to be able to stand and have the comfort. And I mean, touching dirt is so important for everybody, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and the studies show I could, the minerals and things that you actually get in your body just from having your hands in the soil. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, I think a lot of people are looking at you as a mentor at this point. You have touched a lot of people, and I'm curious. You mentioned Venus Williams at Alice's Garden, who I think a lot of people have learned from. She has this open table concept, come to the garden, eat with us, learn with us. Who else or what other kind of resources? You're kind of on a fast track to learn not just the gardening, but I know that you're also learning so much about the grants available and resources that folks can tap into. Where are you learning all this from? Where are you going to get mentored?
So like I said, I have had the pleasure of having so many mentors on this short journey to a certain extent. So Una Van Duval has been an excellent mentor in helping me navigate and learn about the opportunities for grants, because she would always ask me, so how are you getting these things done? I said, I'm paying for it. I work, and then I take my money and I purchase this and I buy that. She says, no, you can't keep doing that. And my answer to her was, my response to her was, well, when I want something done, I just want to get it done, and I don't have the time. I'm doing so much by myself. I just, and she says, you can't keep doing this, honey. You can't keep doing this,
That sounds like Una.
Yeah. So she has been helping me learn how to overcome, for me, what has been a struggle, and that's asking for things. As a single mom, an independent person, who myself has had to work throughout my life from birth with a disability, I am just used to just doing it. And so, but now I am at the point where I'm getting more comfortable seeking out those things and the information. I'm actually finishing up a grant writing course through UWM.
Awesome.
On top of taking the 4-H trainings on top of, just learning as much as I can, because I realize in order to keep my vision for Growing Green Gardens going and expanding, that it's going to need a lot more than just me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And it takes money, it takes funds. And so I've
yeah.
had some great, you know, volunteers this past season. And I think if it were not for a young lady who actually attended one of the classes I was teaching at Alice's Garden, and we just formed a bond from there. And she said, "Oh, I'd like to come out and volunteer." And then she came out several times a week, even at times when I could not be in my own garden because I was doing things in other gardens. And she really helped build Growing Green Gardens alongside with me to what it is today. So she was a mentor in a sense and an inspiration.
Yeah.
She had her reasons for coming and helping, and I appreciate that, because sometimes it can be difficult. Like you said, being on your farm, you didn't have the social,
Right.
the outreach, and it could get lonely at times. And sometimes after I would complete my work at Alice's Garden or Victory Garden or wherever I was, I would be out there until nightfall.
Yeah. Thank God for headlamps, right?
Mm-hmm. I would be out there to nightfall and walking with the deer. We're leaving the garden together. So yes, Van Duval has been and still continues to be a great mentor.
Well,
Also, WeWIC, working with WeWIC, Wisconsin Women in Conservation, learning about conservation more. That wasn't something that was necessarily, I will, just be honest, it wasn't at the forefront. It was just things that I already did. And then I'm learning that there's more that can be done. And so I'm always looking for interesting ways and trying to navigate how I can incorporate conservation practices, sound conservation practices, while I garden. Well, I use farming and gardening interchangeably, but yeah, as I garden and farm.
Well, you have a role now with Wisconsin Women in Conservation, which is really exciting. You are in the southeast region of the state, providing education to people around the conservation aspects, these soil health aspects that you're learning about. And then you will write plans for people, conservation plans, to help move them, to give them a roadmap as they look at the future of their whatever land they're stewarding. Can you tell us a little bit about how that process works for someone to interact with you on that?
Okay, sure. So that is a role that I have had a hand in now for approximately a year and a half, I'll say. So I've had the pleasure of going out to urban farms and rural farms as well, small scale, well, nothing small scale, but acreages, and visiting, doing land walks. I'm finding out from the owners and the farmers what it is that they are trying to accomplish. And so from there, helping developing a plan for them for conservation, be it they want to clear land, but they don't want to use sprays and pesticides. They want to do it in an environmentally conscious way, but sustain the land and utilize the land in other ways. So maybe a suggestion would be to have goats come in to clear it, clear the land. Maybe they have certain barriers. There's one farm I visited in Kenosha where there was a farm right next door to her right, and then on the left were residential homes. And they were on a hill which the runoff
Mm,
from them watering the grass, from rain occurrences and snow would come right onto her farm. And these people were in, $500,000 homes,
right.
using not a weed in sight. So you know what that entails.
Right.
Pesticides, and everyone has Chemlon um, flags, showing
Right.
that the grass has been treated, but she wants to grow organically.
Mm,
So there may be some suggestions from, creating a berm or planting trees along the pathway that would help, soak up the water and the runoff, because you can't, tell people, hey, stop using pesticides. It's not good for the environment. It isn't good. Some people just want to have that pristine lawn, where she wants to grow food. She wants to be environmentally conscious. She wants her foods to be organic. So just trying to help people overcome some of the challenges and barriers when it comes to conservation when they grow.
so, and this is free. People can connect with
Yes,
WeWic, which is wiwic.org, and be
yes,
connected with you in the Southeast or somebody else in a different part of the state who will
right,
walk on their land, sort of record their hopes and dreams, and then help them form a plan. And all of that is free. Um,
right. And
one
in
of,
addition to that, give them resources as well. So if it's through the USDA has different sectors, maybe you can help me with this, the NRCS.
mhm.
Um, so based upon the area that they live in, we also, will provide them, I would provide them with resources. It could be plant sales in the area, or maybe connecting them with um, the entity for where they can maybe lease the goats to clear the
Mhm,
land,
mhm,
so
mhm.
many different. So it's not only just helping them to develop that plan, but giving them as many resources as possible within our arsenal to help their plans come to fruition.
So I'm so glad you brought up the resource aspect. I really wanted to touch on that a little bit. When the Wisconsin Women in Conservation Project started, our main mission was to connect with women landowners, whether they were farming themselves or leasing, or whether they were renting land that they were farming on. We wanted to connect them to federal programs, USDA, United States Department of Agriculture programs that could
Mhm.
potentially provide technical assistance, but also loans,
Loans, grants.
grants for things, and
Hmm.
to help them meet their goals. Now, we were mostly working in rural areas, and
Hmm.
there has, for many years, women haven't gone through the doors of USDA because, in a lot of cases, the men were seen as the sort of the farm managers, even though that's never really been the case. The men
Right.
were doing all the work, but it was sort of the assumption. And so this project was created, one, because more women are taking control of farms and sort of moving into that leadership role on the farm. And the majority of new farmers are women.
Women. Yes.
So
So
we,
remember, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was astounding to me the recorded number of American farms owned by women. Was it in the 40 or 50%?
well, it's half now. Half of the land is owned by women in America. I mean, it
Yeah.
kind of varies between states, but in Wisconsin, 35% of the primary decision makers on production farms are
Farms.
identifying that they are women now. So that's
Wow.
kind of a dramatic mindset change. Like
Hmm.
that hasn't been the case for a long time. Again, not necessarily that women weren't in there doing the work. They just weren't
Right.
being identified as the
Recognize and
decision makers.
identify.
And so our program was sort of designed to make women feel comfortable getting into those office, accessing those resources. However, in the past few years, the USDA has made a lot more resources available to
Yes.
urban farmers.
Hmm.
So that is a big change. We're all kind of trying to negotiate it and figure out what it means. It's very exciting, but
Yes,
you are right there. You are in the crosshairs of that project trying to figure out what is really available. So could you speak to that? Like, I know we're in early days here, but
right.
what is available for um, urban folks, small scale folks who never really thought there was anything for them in terms of these farm programs that
Hmm.
are run by USDA? What's going on now?
Okay, so I'm really excited because I recall at Michael Fields going to different talks in different areas where they were like gathering information, to figure out how could they serve because it was noted as early as I believe when I found out in early 2022 that there were these resources available for urban farmers, but the model was not conducive to urban
Mhm.
farming. And so I am excited that they have recognized um, that although when you were speaking about the funds that were available for women, then urban settings is a little different. We farm as families, we
Mhm.
farm as groups. Many urban farmers do not own the land that they farm on. And so, with the model that the USDA had set up, it just wasn't conducive at the
Right.
time for us. So, I'm so glad that so many changes have come about. Um, One thing I think is like the equip program. So for new farmers or, those who have been farming for a while in urban settings, especially, they've made it more easily accessible for them to qualify for grants or loans for equipment for startups and
Hmm.
for whether they're growing in containers. Well, first, let's define, you know, um, how a person, is how you are considered a farmer. So you can grow in containers and be a farmer. You can grow on your balcony and be a farmer and, be labeled as a farmer or inland or in raised beds,
Hmm.
especially in urban areas because the soil quality is different. It
Right.
isn't as healthy. There's radon and other pollutants from the air that are in the soils that, it really probably isn't a good idea. You should have your soil tested before you plant anything that you um, intend to consume and have your family consume in the natural soil. Um, but the raised beds, I think, are a great option where now you have control and you can control the quality and the inputs into that soil. So that soil is at least 10 to 12 inches in depth, which is generally enough room to grow crops in without infiltrating the soil um, beneath it. So that's a healthier choice. But again, going back to resources, the USDA, equip, and um, as an urban farmer, there are just more resources out there and more help and technical assistance that people can access now, in order to be more successful, to grow as a just for their family or as a business.
So in Milwaukee, folks can
Mm-hmm.
connect to you and learn about these USDA resources. And you mentioned EQIP, which is the Environmental Quality
Environmental
Incentives Program.
program. Yes.
And through that, some people are getting hoop houses, grants to
Yes.
build hoop houses. I know that there's a
Mm-hmm.
move to provide grants for raised beds, I think. Um, I
Hmm.
there's some really interesting new programs out there, and there are now urban garden I guess I would say experts at the USDA office, right? They're in
Yes,
Milwaukee
they have
that
hired. I don't not in Milwaukee. I believe the field office is in the Kenosha area,
okay,
but they do come. They will come out to your location.
because I know
You know,
we've
if,
met
and
some at events down your
yes,
way.
many. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Rick. knits, I want to say. He was one of the main people. I worked with several others. They've come out, to my location and done conducted land surveys, um, learned from me, what it is early on that I would like to, what I was trying to accomplish as a farmer, and then connect me with the resources that they had. And they're very good about work, helping you through, any paperwork or red tape.
That's great, because there's a
'Cause
lot of
it could
paperwork
be,
and red tape.
yeah, but you know what? I think now it has been streamlined, and I think it's, been made a lot easier than probably before when I first began,
Yeah,
because they were
I
still working out the kinks at the time.
I recall sitting in meetings with you where you were asking some really hard questions. And I think that's almost like the theme of our conversation is just the
Hmm.
reciprocity, the learning that's kind of happening in a circle here around urban farming right now. Um,
Hmm.
the USDA is actively learning and trying to help move people along. And of course, we all want more food,
Yes,
longer in the season. We don't want food deserts. We
right.
we all want people to be able to access healthy food and hopefully get their hands on some of the good juju and the microbes.
Yes.
And
And one
so,
thing I have learned, well, one thing I enjoy is that everything that I have been growing, I've given away.
right,
And it's so rewarding for people to family members or friends or, you know, um, whomever, passersby to say, hey, I'm always happy to have them try it, because I feel like once you try it, you're gonna like it. You're gonna want it. Even
yeah,
now, it's strange. Some people say, "Hey, let's go out to eat," and what do you want to eat? Where do you want to go? And I have such a hard time saying what restaurant, because I enjoy, fresh home cooked meals.
right,
Nothing can really replace it.
right,
Um, I'm sure there are many good restaurants, but my preference would be something that, I grew,
right.
or just having even just fresh produce. If I have to supplement by going to the grocery store, of
Right.
course, but it's always those things that are freshly grown.
Well, you are so enthusiastic about the food and about the whole farming scene. You're such a big supporter of these emerging programs. Um,
Mhm.
and I think the positivity that you spread is just infectious. I've
Appreciate
seen
that.
you work, I've seen you interact with your students in the
Hmm.
garden. I've seen you on TV, and just
Oh
your
yeah.
attitude is so welcoming, but also just like, hey, we can do this. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a remarkable, you sort of embody this remarkable can-do attitude where, and you mentioned, you're someone who uh, is a single mom, you have a disability from birth, and yet you're out there saying, come on, everybody, let's go. I think,
Right. Remove all barriers. There's no excuses.
yeah,
I really enjoy, I forgot to mention, as the youth education coordinator here at Victory Garden and the community garden educator, I also work at Riverside Elementary School,
oh,
where we do a gardening course through the CLC program, and it's called the Young Chefs in Training. So I wish I had some pictures to share with you. Um,
yeah,
they are this is an amazing group of children. So from ages 5 through 11 are the age ranges. So approximately 30 some odd children on Mondays and Wednesdays. So we get together and during the growing season, we had some foods that we would harvest and, straight out the ground. Like I pulled the roots out and everything. And these children just went to work learning how to separate the green beans from the pods, how to cut up and chop up the cabbage. We prepare meals throughout the week in our classes,
Amazing.
and it's just so amazing. And a lot of times I would hear, "Oh, I don't like that," or "I don't eat this, I don't eat that." And they hands on help make the meals from clean up in the beginning, setting up the tables, getting out the equipment that we're going to need to cook, learning what the different utensils are, down to preparing the food, serving the food to each other, and then we sit down together as like
Wow.
family style and eat together each week. And it's just been a great experience. So I'm
Wow.
looking forward to the toward the end of the school year, which will be, sometime in June. We are developing a cookbook that's based off their favorite recipes. So it'll
That's
have
amazing.
the pictures and the books that we took along the way and some of their comments and things. So this has been very wonderful. We're actually looking for another school to add on to this one for the next school year.
That is
But
incredible.
yes,
Incredible.
yes, and I enjoy that so much.
Well, a lot of times I wrap up these podcast interviews by asking what gives people hope. I think you give people a lot of hope for the future. But what about you? You give so much energy out. What nurtures you, LaDonna? How do you keep it going?
Living out my passion,
Mm,
living out, being able to do what it is that I'm doing.
mm,
You know, life, brings many challenges at times, and my peace is in growing. My peace is in, teaching and helping others, encouraging others. I don't even like to use the word teach. Um, I learned long ago that no one is a teacher. People make a choice to learn. So the
wow.
only thing we do is um, introduce them, show them, guide them.
Hmm.
So I would like to help guide others and steer them in the directions and give them the tools and share with them my knowledge and also learn, to learn from others how to grow sustainable foods, use sound practices, and, conserving earth, um, the soil, water, land, the animals
Hmm.
do no harm.
Right.
So leave as less of a carbon footprint
Hmm.
as I possibly can, and try to help encourage others to do the same, in meaningful ways that are, meaningful to them as best as they
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for
can.
taking all this time to talk to me. I mean, I can't believe I pinned you down for for an hour to actually
Anytime for you, Chris, anytime.
to actually have you sitting in a seat is amazing. It's it's been so fun to kind of follow your journey and your exploration of that the beautiful Milwaukee landscape, and you really are bringing forth a lot of amazing potential. So thank you. I
Thank
can't
you.
wait to get out to Firefly Ridge and see you, take some photos out in
Oh,
your
yes.
place, and experience all that you that you are doing out there. It's just wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the Queen
Thank
Bee
you,
Session.
Chris. Thank you for this opportunity. And you are welcome wherever I be.
Thank you for joining the conversation. The Queen Bee Sessions are brought to you by Wisconsin Women in Conservation, or WeWiC, a collaborative effort between the Michael Fields Agricultural Institute, Wisconsin Farmers Union, Renewing the Countryside, and Marbleseed. This project is funded by the United States Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service to connect women landowners and farmers with conservation education, technical assistance, and cost-share funding. For more information about events, programs, local potlucks, and mentorship opportunities, visit wewic.org and sign up for The Buzz, a monthly e-newsletter. All WeWiC assistance is free of charge.